Who is the Pilot's Planner and what is the Wealthy Pilots Podcast? Let's find out. Let's get it started.
We've got some turbulence up ahead. Reach out to the Pilot's Planner.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Thanks for tuning in to our first kickoff podcast with Scott Osborn, the Pilot's Planner here on the Wealthy Pilots Podcast. We're going to keep it simple this week. We're just going to get to know Scott and what makes him tick. Welcome in, my friend. How you doing?
What's up, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing well. Looking forward to talking to you and getting through this conversation about what is the Wealthy Pilots Podcast and, what's going on with this whole thing that we're setting up here. So, let's get into it. Why the Wealthy Pilots Podcast?
Dude, it's a good question. And I think it's interesting if you look at what pilots are going through right now. They're in higher demand than they've ever been. I don't know if you can hear it right now. Actually, I live right next to a fighter wing and they just flew overhead. So the timing could not be more epic with these guys to help me.
No, it didn't come through, but we can see the cool picture behind you though.
Yeah. To help me introduce. So, candidly, I work with some guys here locally that are out of our fighter wing that fly for Delta. And as we've dove into their scenarios and their cases a little bit more deeply, they're facing some, unique challenges that I really motivated me to want to kind of get out here and start busting some myths and share some good education and best practices. As you see more and more cases over and over again, you start to see some of the same mistakes that some of these guys and girls are making. And so how do we help them avoid some of the most common mistakes out there from a financial planning and investing standpoint, and then help them not only avoid the mistakes, but then engage in some of the best practices out there as well. Again, pilots are in super high demand right now. It's good to be a pilot right now, but that means they're getting, from a financial perspective, there's a lot of times where it's not good in terms of, the amount of hours, but from a financial perspective, they're getting more, kind of lucrative packages than they've ever received. And so it's putting some of these folks in a position where, I'd say they're more susceptible to making some bad decisions, but if you can make some good decisions, you can really, move the needle significantly from a wealth building standpoint for sure.
Well, so you're the Pilot's Planner, right? So you got that right on the shirt there. Very cool. And you guys can check them out at thepilotsPlanner.com. But so what does it mean to you? Obviously you've got some military stuff behind you there, Scott. You and I have chatted before. So you've got this background. What does it mean to you to be an advisor, but really also be an advisor for this niche?
I love pilots, man. So, it's funny. Like, I'm an old infantry guy. I'm actually going to retire out of the Army this year. I've been in the National Guard for a while here too. And so I'm just like I would always joke with the pilots, like, guys, you know me, I'm just like a knuckle dragging, cran eating infantry guy. Like, we're on the ground looking up like, oh man, we should have joined the Air Force. Like, we're all so stupid to be down here. So,
right.
You have a lot of that competition between the branches, but at the end of the day, what I've loved about being, not only in combat arms, but in the infantry is like you're in those war fighting functions, and it's kind of fun to have that rift between some of the different styles out there and of service. And so, again, here locally in my community, we have a very active fighter wing in the Air National Guard. So those guys are flying overhead all the time. I mean, their landing route goes right over my backyard. So it's funny, like some of the guys I know that are, all of our kids go to school together and stuff. I'll be like floating in the pool and, they're flying right overhead and stuff. So, but honestly, Mark, it's, for me, kind of just going back through my military service, obviously I've loved leading soldiers on the ground and loved doing everything I've gotten to do for the Army too. But there is that appreciation for what all the guys are doing in the sky too. You got the helicopter pilots doing their thing, but even all the guys transporting us here and there or different kinds of air support. So, this one right here, this isn't the one that you just heard going by. We have F-16s here locally, but this one that I have behind me is, we always say it's like the infantryman's best friend in the sky. So this is like the A-10 Warthog that is responsible for providing ground cover or cover to those troops on the ground. So, this is kind of like our guardian angel aircraft. So, that's why I got that one here sponsoring me in the background. But ultimately, I think that connection of, brotherhood, being on the tip of the spear, doing hard things, having to leave your family a lot for training or deployment or whatever the case is. has all kind of led to just some common threads of, service, family, being driven to be successful. And so that's really driven a lot of that connection with this pilot community. And, it's been a great group of guys and girls to get to know for sure.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. Yeah. My two favorite birds are the SR-71 and the Warthog. So, you just can't beat it, right? The SR-71, just because, just the thing was amazing, right? It's
one high, one low.
Engineering. What's that?
I said one high and one low.
That's right. One high and one low. Exactly. Great way to put it. So, all right. So you've been, an advisor for, been doing this for many years. What got you just kind of into the business in general? Just, you're a numbers guy or just kind of what appeals to you about, because really it's a puzzle piece, right? When you're helping people plan, you're thinking about accumulating wealth, preserving wealth, distributing wealth, all that kind of stuff. It's kind of puzzle. You're kind of a puzzle guy or a numbers guy?
I'm not a puzzle guy in terms of like actually putting puzzles together from a hobby perspective. Definitely a numbers guy. So I have an engineering degree from the University of Toledo here locally. And so, I've always been good at math and numbers and all that. However, I will say kind of in this space, it's really, I would almost say like my background in the military has helped me just as much, if not more, because there's so much we do from a comprehensive planning standpoint and thinking intentionally. And then really on the leadership side, for me, it's been a little weird, like not growing up in the industry where so many people get trained on how to be a salesperson first. My whole background was leadership first. And so for me, coming in really as the planner for these guys and girls, it's really around, getting the right objective set. What are the action items we need to complete? And then who do we bring in to help us get those action items done and then hold them accountable to get it done? It's similar to like a pilot as well. They're not the ones, putting the fuel in the tank, so to speak. They're not DIYing that entire flight plan and that entire journey. There's a lot of hands.
Part of the crew. There's a whole crew. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's really where I'm trying to come in and like, hey, what crew do we need to bring in to get the right things done for the client?
Gotcha.
And then, really in terms of why I got into it in the beginning, honestly, it probably goes back to my childhood. I have a little bit of this written out in my book too, but my childhood, we didn't grow up, I would say like poor, but we didn't grow up even middle class necessarily. So, my dad was a tool and die guy growing up, in the 90s. In Toledo, Ohio here, we got the automotive industry. So he was always working for different suppliers and, his working off shifts, working weekends, then getting furloughed for, down markets and down economy. And so, it was just a lot of ebb and flow and financial instability. I remember, getting off the school bus and seeing groceries right there on the doorstep that somebody had left from the church. God bless them. And so there's some of those things that kind of get into you when you're a kid that you're like, when you're a kid, you don't know. It's just, to me, it felt normal. It's my childhood. But by the time I was a teenager, I remember I think I was 12 and I asked my dad for like $3.25 to go see Ace Ventura when Nature Calls with some buddies. And such a stupid movie, but it's hilarious. And he didn't have it. Like, dude, I can remember it like it was yesterday, him opening his wallet and just looking at my eyes and saying, Scott, I don't have it. $3.25. And he was heartbroken. I felt, because he's such a hardworking guy. I felt terrible.
Yeah, any parent who can relate. Yeah.
Oh, man. And so that really kind of set me on a journey of like right after that, I went and got a job. I was like baling straw, gutting chickens, doing landscape work, whatever I could. I started making money back then and just like, I got to figure out how to do things a little different when I'm older. So that really, I think, lit a fire in me for personal finance and being very like prudent with the money I'm making and not wasting it. And so that kind of really carries over into, what I'm doing for clients as a planner too. Like, hey, we got to save money where we need to save money. We need to enjoy money where we're going to enjoy money. Let's not overpay in taxes. Let's do well with our investments and bring all that together to do the best we can with the resources we have. To me, I just feel like it's the responsible thing to do. But not everybody feels like that way, and definitely not everybody behaves that way. So I think some of those things from my childhood really kind of set me on a path that, I was destined to eventually get into this space. And then, kind of merging that with all that military experience and then again, being here locally with these fighter wing guys, it just kind of has all brought it together to be a pilot's planner these days.
That's awesome, man. Well, I'll tell you what, let's wrap it up with one final question. So we're doing this podcast. We're going to be on YouTube and all this good stuff. So we're going to have, all the different platforms out there. What's your takeaway for folks? What are you hoping their takeaway, I suppose, is from the point of from the podcast and the different content we'll be talking about?
I mean, I think the takeaway is you can do better together. I mean, working with somebody, getting clear on your goals and objectives, getting the action items, and then getting them done, you're going to do better with somebody. So if it ain't us, find somebody. You're going to do better with somebody. There's all the data, all the studies out there support it as well. And then I think even kind of qualitatively, when you talk to people and they're with a trusted advisor and they have a good plan that's being acted on, there's a lot of confidence and a lot of good results that come from that. So I think that's it. You'll do better together. I mean, yeah, when you're in the front seat, you got a co-pilot too. So there's nothing wrong with a financial co-pilot to help you watch your back and take care of business so you can focus on the things you need to focus on.
That's awesome, man. Well, I'm the co-pilot here on the podcast. So for now, we'll sign off. So don't forget to hit subscribe and the little notification thing and all that good jazz so you can catch new episodes of the podcast when they come out. This is the Wealthy Pilots Podcast with Scott Osborn, who is the Pilot's Planner. And we'll see you next time right here on the show.
Information is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute tax, investment, or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action.